Arsenal 5, Manchester City 1. This is the game that all of our players deserve for all their hard work this year. This is the game that the fans wanted so badly to get one over Manchester City. And this is a game that will go down in the memory of every Arsenal fan for a long time. And I'm going to discuss it all here on this Arsenal Unfiltered match review. Let's get into it. Yes, hello and welcome back to another episode of Arsenal Unfiltered, your 3 times a week dose of Arsenal coverage with me, your host Mark. You might be able to tell from my voice that I was there yesterday. I was soaking it all in around the ground before the game, and during the game there was a lot of singing, a lot of merriment and a lot of celebration, so I do apologise for my voice today. I hope it holds out for the whole of this podcast, but I can make no promises. I hope wherever you managed to watch the game yesterday that you really enjoyed that one. What a day, what a moment, what a number of moments actually, and it's just something that I feel like Arsenal fans deserved after a season of pain, a season of disbelief at times, a season where I feel like we've suffered with injury, we've suffered with refereeing decisions we can't believe, we've suffered watching a Liverpool team suddenly just sprout into life, and Mo Salah have a season that is unbelievable by almost any metric, and we've suffered watching that. And I feel like yesterday we were able to forget all of that. We forgot all the pain, we forgot all of the things that have gone wrong, we forgot all of the injustices, and it felt like we came together to celebrate, and boy did the players turn up. That is a performance that will go down in history, in my opinion. It will be one of the best nights at the Emirates Stadium in the Emirates Stadium's, short history so far. And one of the best performances, definitely the best performance I've ever had the pleasure of seeing live. One of the best performances I think I've seen an Arsenal team put out in recent time. That was absolutely incredible. And like I said at the start, we're going to discuss it all here today. It is 5:15 on Monday afternoon, so basically an hour, a day removed from the game. And I haven't come off cloud 9 yet, that's for certain. It's been absolutely brilliant, just enjoying this day, and I'm going to take even more of it in tonight and probably into tomorrow. It is just so fantastic, and it's a wonderful feeling. And we are still sat here without a signing. Of course, it closes tonight, the transfer window, so that will be a worry in some fans' eyes. But this result will have done a lot to make fans feel a lot more easy, a lot more, not content, but okay with the idea that it doesn't look like we're going to sign anyone this January transfer window. Before I get into the game and how it happened, and I'm going to do a slightly different approach today. I'm not going to go through it bit by bit. I'm going to talk around the game a little bit more. I just want to talk a little bit about the context of this rivalry that we've grown with Manchester City over the last few years. Since we've become, well, maybe you could argue since Mikel Arteta has been our manager, this has been a rivalry that has boiled over and bubbled up to the surface, and it's been something that we've wanted for a long time now, is to put Manchester City back in their place. I remember in the kind of later Wenger years, as Manchester City were getting their money and they took players from us. They took Sami Nasri, they took Gael Clichy, Bakary Sagna, players that we didn't love them, but we liked them, and they disappeared from us and they went to Manchester City and they won trophies, and it hurt watching our players we'd brought into the Premier League, win trophies with that team. And then obviously when we took Mikel Arteta from Manchester City, that narrative was always there. It was always going to be the apprentice versus the master. It was always going to be, when can Mikel Arteta get one over on Pep Guardiola? Of course, last season we did beat them 1-0, but it didn't feel like yesterday, did it? That was a nervy, on the edge, knife edge game. And this one, whilst it had its moments, it was absolutely brilliant. And I think we showed that we are no longer the little brother in this rivalry. We've gone 4 undefeated now. and we are shifting from scared and nervous to play this team to dominant, and having that belief that Mikel Arteta has instilled in our players that we can go and produce performances like yesterday is going to be so key. Whether we win the Premier League and the Champions League this year or not, having results like this in your team's memory, in your team's back pocket, it's what matters, okay? It's a real statement. And, Manchester United often talk about that FA Cup semi-final where Ryan Giggs scored that sensational goal against us. And they often talk about that as a real statement victory in our rivalry, and one that made them believe that they could regularly beat us and weren't going to be bullied. I think this is our version of that. We're not going to be bullied by Manchester City anymore. We have suddenly become not the ones who respond to the games, but we are now the tone setters. We set the tone for yesterday's game. We were up and at them. We were dominating with our press, and we obviously scored extremely early. And to win 5-1, no matter what the reaction is from Manchester City fans, from Liverpool fans, from Sky Sports, I'm not even going to give some of the comments I've seen the light of day. That no matter what the reaction is, you just cannot argue with a 5-1 scoreline. And I think the context of the rivalry yesterday shifted. It changed entirely, because whilst Manchester City are obviously still a very good team, and they have achieved far more in recent memory than we have, you looked at those two teams yesterday and you felt only one was growing into their squad. I looked at our players as I was sat there in my seat, and I looked at Ethan Nwaneri, Miles Lewis-Skelly, Declan Rice, Kai Havertz, these players who we're going to have for years and years to come, William Saliba. And I just thought, this is a team that is about to reach its peak. We thought it was going to reach its peak this year, but I do really believe that it's coming together at some point in the near future. And Manchester City are going the opposite direction. Their superstars are fading away. Kevin De Bruyne came on and looked absolutely powerless to do anything against our midfield. We've seen, Erling Haaland get 9 touches in one game, and I'm not saying he's fading away. He's obviously still a young player, but he has become fallible. He's not this untouchable figure that he was when he came into the league. And I think we changed the narrative yesterday. I'm so proud of the players, because let's face it, that was not 90 minutes of Arsenal completely dominating. Yes, we won 5-1. But after we scored the first goal, let's say after the first 15 minutes, I'd say, we were really at it for 15 minutes. I don't think City were ready for our intensity, but you can't keep that intensity up for a whole game. And when we retreated a little bit, it meant that Manchester City came back into this game a little bit. And they had a lot of possession in that first half after the Ødegaard goal. They had a huge amount of kind of territory as well and field tilt, but they didn't do anything with it particularly in that first half. But then they managed obviously to get their moment in the 55th minute with Erling Haaland. To be fair, it's a great goal. Savinho does fantastically, and I think you can probably criticise 2 Arsenal moments in this game. One is the Kai Havertz sitter, which we'll come on to talk about, and the other one is William Saliba in this moment. I'm not gonna go in and slam him, but he does get beaten quite easily by Erling Haaland. It's a simple header. But I just want to talk again about, I guess, the mental approach, and it goes back to that kind of what I just spoke about as the context of this rivalry shifting. And it felt like Arsenal said, no, yeah, you've got back to 1-1. Yeah, it's level again. Yes, you've had most of the ball, most of the field tilt, but you're not winning this game. And I don't know, just the way that Thomas Partey strode onto that pass that Phil Foden, I mean, it's a terrible pass from Phil Foden, but the way he strode onto that, got it out of his feet, and he took a chance. He lacked fear. There was no fear in that moment. There was no fear of, oh God, they've equalised and now we've got to do this all again. We've got to repair what we've done. We've got to try and get another goal back. He just stepped onto it and strode onto that shot. Yes, it takes a big deflection, but if you were a fearful player, if you were a player playing with nerves at that point, you'd be trying to find the perfect pass. you'd be maybe slowing it down. But he just decided, do you know what? We're good enough to win this, and I'm going to hit one. And that response, I thought, to turn the pattern of the game, we've seen in recent years, probably not recent years, that's not fair, but, early Mikel Arteta reign, late Wenger era, where we could compete with these teams, these super teams that were developing, Chelsea, Liverpool, Manchester City. We could compete with them, and we'd maybe even go 1-0 up in games. But we would get to a point where we would have to survive, and if another team did score against us, that was it. That was our mental resilience crumbled away and disappeared. Whereas yesterday, it felt like there was a will to win, and I'm going to come on and talk about him later, but Declan Rice personified that. He was absolutely everywhere, as was a number of players were absolutely everywhere. Martin Odegaard, Kai Havertz, fantastic job pressing and getting through their work up front and triggering the press. I thought Leandro Trossard was really, really active, really brilliant. There's two centre-backs, of course, fantastic. I felt like there was a will to win across the whole team, and the energy in the stadium responded to that, I have to admit. There was a nervous period as Manchester City started to get control of the ball, and I could feel the fans just feeling like, oh no, it's going to be one of those days where actually we start and we prove that we're good enough to play with these teams. We prove that we're good enough to compete with these teams, but one goal isn't enough. It doesn't get us across the line. It doesn't get us there, and we end up losing it or drawing by conceding a late goal or something like that. So that was in the energy, that was in the air in the stadium, but the players did not feel that. They had a will to win, and what a mental response from them, because we've seen that pattern. We know that pattern. We know how difficult the players have had it this year, and for them to come out and come back fighting is just absolutely fantastic. I'm going to speak about some individual performances as well today, but I want to do that within the context of what they did. And one thing that we did brilliantly yesterday, and better than I think we've done it all year, was our press. Now, we pressed right when we needed to press, and I have to admit, we did it at the perfect moments. I don't think there was ever a point where we really mistimed one or we got it wrong, and we didn't just hunt them. We didn't just say to our forwards, we're going to run, and, do absolutely everything we can and work you to the bone, to the point at, 60 minutes, you've got no hope, and we're going to have to change you, and it's going to unsettle everything. Actually, we picked really great moments to get them. And it's very clear that Manchester City's kind of rest defence is not very good. So when they lose the ball, even if it's not in a high turnover, even if it's in a turnover in our half, they're not ready to do it. They're not ready to counter that. They're not ready to counter press. They're not ready to deal with it, which meant that wherever we turned the ball over, we posed a threat. If we turned it over in their half, though, we posed a massive threat. We had 4 moments where we had a high turnover and they resulted in a shot. 3 of those were goals. And of course, one of them was the Kai Havertz missed chance in the first half, that sitter that he missed. That's quite incredible, because I think Arsenal, I haven't checked these stats, but I remember hearing them. I think Arsenal have been very high up in the league for high turnovers this year, but very low in the league for high turnovers leading to shots. So for us to get 4 shots off in one game against a team with the quality of Manchester City from high turnovers is just fantastic. And obviously the first high turnover we did was the Martin Odegaard goal. Declan Rice was in there, Leandro Trossard was in there. They pounced on Manuel Akanji, and of course it came to Kai Havertz, who I think had a really, really interesting game, and we will talk about a little bit more later. But he does the selfless thing of just squaring it to Martin Odegaard, and it takes a little bit of a deflection off John Stones, but he does enough. He does enough, and I actually think Martin Odegaard's done really well to finish that, because Kai Havertz doesn't exactly lay it on a plate for him. But that was just the tone setter, wasn't it? That was what we were going to do. We were going to pounce on them when they were not in the right positions, not in the right moments. Akanji didn't look ready. Trossard came flying in to win that. Declan Rice backed him up and could obviously play that pass, and it was simple. It was simple in the end. There was obviously the Thomas Partey goal as well, which came from a high turnover, a really poor moment from Phil Foden, and just trying to think of the other one that came from that, from a high turnover. I think it would have been the Ethan Nwaneri goal, turning it over on that left-hand side. So just fantastic from us, and I'm amazed at how well we pressed yesterday, because this is a team that we were playing yesterday in Manchester City that should have been not press proof, but they are very, very good. In their defenders, they had John Stones back, they had Manuel Akanji. Their defenders can really, really play. Okay, they had Paul Mateus Nunez playing in fullback, but if he can give you one thing, it should be quality on the ball, right? You don't want him at fullback, but if that's one thing you can get out of him, it should be that quality to be avoiding the ability to be pressed. But the defenders just couldn't cope, and there were multiple times that we pinned them in and really just dealt with them high up the pitch. It wasn't that we were always up the pitch or always having possession up the pitch. What it was we just picked our moments. We picked our moments to fly forward, and when we did it, we did a really, really good job. So I was so impressed with the pressing, so impressed with how it did. And go on, let's talk about Kai Havertz. Kai Havertz and his performance. I think he worked his absolute socks off yesterday. He worked his socks off, and his build-up play was just exceptional. He added so much to the game. But what people will be talking about is the sitter that he missed. And I put this post on Blue Sky, and I stand by this entirely. One thing, oh, there we go, my voice has gone now. I knew it would go at some point in this podcast. One thing we always say about great strikers is it doesn't matter if they miss a chance, because they've got a goldfish memory and they go again and they score the next one. And we talk about that phrase and that kind of football concept, idea, cliche, if you will, around really brilliant strikers. We would say it around the Thierry Henrys and the Sergio Agueros of this world. So the fact that Kai Havertz missed that chance yesterday, and it was a bad miss. It happened at the end I was sat at, and I couldn't believe it. I was gobsmacked that he didn't even hit the target. And when I watched it back, I was even more gobsmacked. Because you when you're watching it live, you think, oh, maybe I've missed something. Maybe a defender was closing him down. Maybe there was something going on. But you get home and you watch it back, and it kind of emphasises how bad that moment was. But for Kai Havertz to have that moment in a game, and to know that he's had moments like that against Newcastle, against Manchester United, just a few weeks ago, to know all of that and know the context of this game and how important it was and how up for it the fans were, to have that in his mind and still burst round the outside of Gabriel Martinelli for the fourth goal, get round the outside of him, receive the pass, take a brilliant touch inside and whip one into the bottom corner, like a true number 9 would. I think he deserves all the credit in the world. And there are a lot of people out there saying, oh, yeah, but Kai missed a sitter, so it should have been more, and we need to go and get a striker. That's exactly why we need to go and get a striker. I put it to you that the response from Kai Havertz is exactly why we don't need to go and get a striker. I was amazed by that moment, and to get a goal and an assist in this game for Kai Havertz was just fantastic, considering the amount of work that he's got through this year in previous games, and that he got through in yesterday's game. I think it's really important to remember he sat down for sort of 70-75 minutes midweek against Girona. He got a rest. And when you get Kai Havertz on a rest, or at least this version of Kai Havertz, not the Chelsea version of Kai Havertz, the Arsenal version of Kai Havertz, when you get him having fresh legs, and when you get him having a moment just to rest his brain as well, you get an incredible player. You get an animal that Mikel Arteta has sculpted from the kind of the ruins of a child prodigy, if you will. He came from Leverkusen to England, and everyone thought this guy is going to be the next big thing. Chelsea nearly destroyed him, and Mikel Arteta has built this kid back up from basically rubble to become a really, really top quality Premier League player who has a mentality so strong that he can have a moment like yesterday where the whole stadium went silent and we all gasped and we all couldn't believe it. He can have a moment like that and come back and provide a finish as clinical as he did in that fourth goal, and to provide an assist as well yesterday. What more do you want from your number 9? What more do you want from him than a goal and an assist in a game against one of your biggest rivals, with pressing, with build-up play contributions, with a desire that makes it look like he was born and raised in Hale End? It's quite incredible what this guy does, and I don't know why he gets the criticism that he does. I just cannot understand it. Yes, it was a bad miss yesterday, but what a finish for the fourth goal, and what an example this guy sets to the rest of his teammates. I think it's brilliant. I'm going to take a break. I am going to rest my voice, and then I'm going to come back. Now I'm going to talk about David Raya, the midfield masterclass from Declan Rice and Thomas Partey, and I'm going to talk about two players I haven't even mentioned yet, the teenagers, Ethan Nwaneri and Miles Lewis-Skelly. I will be back in a moment. Hello guys, I just want to interrupt this match review podcast very, very quickly and say a massive thank you for listening to Arsenal Unfiltered. It really means the world that you guys are out there downloading and listening to this podcast. I do it 3 times a week, and I will review every single Arsenal match, as well as sum up all the important Arsenal news that you need to know in the Arsenal Roundup once a week. If you've enjoyed this episode, or you've enjoyed any episode of the Arsenal Unfiltered, please consider giving me a follow and going and finding how you review podcasts on your chosen podcast provider and giving me a 5-star review. Both of those things, a follow and a review, really, really help me grow the podcast, and it will make me even more able to bring you 3 times a week Arsenal content all the time. Thank you very much. Welcome back to part 2 of this Arsenal Unfiltered match review podcast. Arsenal 5, Manchester City 1. I cannot say it enough. Arsenal 5, Manchester City 1. I might get it tattooed. Who knows? What a great day yesterday, like I've been talking about. And one of the players, or two of the players, who encapsulated that great day and made it really, really come to life, for me at least, were Declan Rice and Thomas Partey. I think these two players, and this midfield especially, Declan Rice at 8, Martin Odegaard at that sort of 8-10, and Thomas Partey at 6, has been incredible this year. I want to talk specifically about Declan Rice. He obviously has 2 really, really fantastic assists for Miles Lewis-Skelly and Ethan Nwaneri. The Miles Lewis-Skelly assist is a fast, pacey, fired ball into the youngster in the box. And obviously the Ethan Nwaneri assist is a raking switch across the pitch, both of which came from that kind of left wing area that he was operating in so much. Some quick stats: 4 progressive passes, 3 key passes. He made 88.1% of his passes. In defence, he had 3 ball recoveries, 2 clearances, and he had 2 progressive carries in this game. He was everywhere, up and down that left-hand side, and he operated so effectively with Leandro Trossard and Miles Lewis-Skelly. If they were inside, he was outside. If he was inside, they were outside. There was always a triangle there, and those guys pressed together like a pack, and they were happy to do each other's jobs. I thought it was brilliant how well those guys interchanged, and I think it was spearheaded by the football intelligence and the physical capabilities of Declan Rice. This guy came back from the Euros absolutely shattered, and we saw for a number of weeks, not the Declan Rice we'd signed. We saw a guy who was a bit of a shell of the guy we'd signed, really, and I feel like in recent weeks he has come flying back, and he is really worth every single penny of that £105 million. I cannot believe that we have found a player who is genuinely worth over £100 million. I mean, how many of those £100 million, or let's even say over £80 million transfers have worked? I would take a guess that it's less than a quarter of those transfers can be considered a success, and we have done one of them. I think he is absolutely sensational. And the thing I love about Declan Rice is we all thought he was coming to be a 6, and I think he was probably thinking, I'm coming to be a 6. But this guy is adding to his game all the time. And I've said it about Bukayo Saka before, I've heard other people say it. You think there's a weakness in his game, he goes away for a summer, he works on it, he comes back and he fixes it. Declan Rice, it feels like Declan Rice is always working on his game. We thought he was coming to be a 6. We thought he was coming to be a destroyer, to be our Rodri. Simple passes, incredible tackles. He's turned in. Oh, there it goes again. My voice. I can't do anything about it, guys. I do apologise. He's turned into our left 8, a marauding box to box, incredibly athletic, so strong, but also a fantastic ball player now. He's just added that to his game this year. I have more confidence now when he is on the ball than anyone else in this team. I just do not believe there is a better player in this team at kind of not keeping the ball in tight areas. I don't think it's his game, but about being efficient with what he does with the ball. I don't think there is a better player in the team who is more efficient than Declan Rice when he's got the ball. It's minimal touches. If he needs, to take more touches, he does, but he doesn't overplay. I've never seen him overplay. And when he needs to fire a pass to someone, he fires it. He fires it early or at the right time. He's brilliant. And I thought yesterday's performance was fantastic. The way he brought Miles Lewis-Skelly and Leandro Trossard into the game, the way he facilitated those guys having good games by supporting them. He did so much running for them, it was ridiculous. And I think as well, Thomas Partey, I was really complimentary to Thomas Partey at the start of this season, and then I just thought, I think he's faded again. I feel like he's gone. I feel like he's not quite where he needs to be. He was not good in the Girona game, in my opinion. And then all of a sudden he produces a performance like yesterday. And he obviously got his goal running onto that Phil Foden pass and then hitting one. But also when Gabriel gave him that ball for the Kai Havertz goal, it was fantastic. The way he turned, spun on the ball, got it out of his feet and fired a pass up to Gabriel Martinelli. And I've got to say as well about Thomas Partey, he was doing that all day. He was playing on the half turn all damn day. And where in previous years Manchester City might have hunted that and they might have gone for him and they might have tried to play on that kind of insistence we have on building through the back, they just couldn't do it this year. And that triangle of David Raya, William Saliba, Gabriel and Thomas Partey were unbelievable with the ball yesterday. But I have to give it to Thomas Partey because the amount of times we had the ball and it looked like Manchester City were just thinking, maybe we can get them here. Maybe they've overplayed this. The ball would go into Thomas Partey and he would spin away on the half turn like he does and get us out. And this guy does that better than anyone in the Premier League. And yes, he's got his physical limitations. Yes, he's had his injury problems. Yes, I've seen him switch off in games this year. But I cannot think of a player who is better than Thomas Partey at that particular skill. Playing on the half turn and just spinning away from players and getting us out of presses. He's fantastic. And I thought he had a brilliant game and I was really, really pleased for him. A quick word on David Raya as well. He made 2 massive saves in the first half. One was just incredible. Vardiol out-jumps our defenders at a corner and David Raya gets his hand to the ball, but not just gets his hand to the ball, somehow manages to push it up and away onto the bar. Gets tons of power on it, even though it was like a quick reaction save. And this is what these guys do all the time, right? But it's still really incredible when you see them do it in a game, not just in training. That fast hand and pushing with power. And then he made a really good save that actually the shot deflected off William Saliba and it went down to his right and he had to react very, very quickly. They were both in the first half and it kept us in the game and it showed the value of why you pay big money to get a great keeper in, because his distribution was very good yesterday, but now he is starting to add these big saves to his game, especially this year. It's like he went away in the summer and thought, that's what I'm going to focus on, that's what I'm going to learn, and he's really developed into a superb shot stopper. I'm so happy he's our keeper, and he really contributed. And I've saved the best till last. I want to talk about the teenagers, Miles Lewis-Skelly and Ethan Nwaneri. I mean, first of all, the Miles Lewis-Skelly celebration for his goal, fantastic. Fantastic needle from that kid. I just love it, and I love how rattled everyone's been from it, because apparently it's okay when Haaland throws the ball at the back of Gabriel's head, but if Lewis-Skelly does a celebration, or if Gabriel celebrates in Erling Haaland's face, that's not okay. Bollocks to that. Bollocks to that. Well done, Miles Lewis-Skelly. I love the needle. And whilst his goal was good, and I thought it was really impressive to see him drive aggressively from left back, it wasn't the highlight of his day. The highlight of his day was the fact that at 18 years old, he started in a massive, massive derby match, like he did in the North London derby, and he didn't look out of place. He did not look one iota out of place. And I really thought Calafiori was going to play this game. Calafiori had played well midweek, and I just thought, yeah, this is a Calafiori game. Let's not expose Miles Lewis-Skelly to this. But what was I thinking? Let's not expose the most confident, the most calm and composed young man that I think I've ever seen at Arsenal. Let's not expose that guy to a derby. Ridiculous. He looked so good on the ball, and I thought in the second half in particular, he had a couple of moments where he did his thing, shielding the ball off Erling Haaland, driving away from Manchester City players when he nicked the ball off them. He was brilliant. And to do that at 18 years old, to have that courage, to have that arrogance, to have that kind of trust in yourself, to have your teammates trust you the way that our team trust Miles Lewis-Skelly, simply sensational. And obviously Ethan Nwaneri comes on late and does what Ethan Nwaneri does. His trademark finish now. It's like we have got Saka back in the room, even though he's still on the injury table. Quite incredible, that goal. Quite incredible. One, the pass from Declan Rice is inch perfect and absolutely brilliant. But Ethan Nwaneri just takes it down, drives across, and gives Ortega in the Manchester City goal absolutely no chance. So well done to those two. I have to say, for the whole team, I can't think of a single player that wasn't at least an 8 out of 10. With, I think the guys who I've spoken about today were probably 9s out of 10. And I just want to say I'm so proud and so happy for this team. And it's now 10-6 on Monday evening. Nothing has happened on my phone to suggest that we are signing anyone today or tonight. And that might mean that we feel and we fall short in a game in a few weeks' time or something like that. It might mean, a number of things this year might mean that we don't win the Premier League. And a number of things might mean that we don't get even close in the Champions League. But I look at a performance like yesterday, and I look at everything this team has given whilst they've been without players, whilst they've had injuries, whilst, they've been criticised completely unfairly in the press. And the Premier League have allowed the refs to continue to not have an agenda against us. I'm not saying that, but give bizarre decisions and prove points with Arsenal. The players have kept going no matter what, and I think the players deserve real credit to be able to turn up yesterday knowing Liverpool had already won against Bournemouth, knowing that actually this is a game that Liverpool fans will have earmarked as that might be the end of Arsenal. That game might be the end of them this year. To have all of that psychological pressure of playing last on the weekend as well, to be that team, to have to soak all of that up, to take that on, I thought was really, really special. So the players deserve a lot of credit, and Mikel Arteta deserves a huge amount of credit as well, because these guys, you can criticise a lot of what Arsenal have done this year. You can criticise finishing, you can criticise build-up play, you can criticise maybe even squad building of how we've coped when we haven't had Martin Odegaard and Bukayo Saka. Fair. I'm not going to tell anyone that they're not allowed their opinions. What you cannot criticise, and where you would be wrong if your opinion was opposite to this, is saying, these Arsenal players have worked so hard this year. They have worked through horrible conditions, and they worked their socks off yesterday for this victory. Mikel Arteta has instilled that in them. Mikel Arteta is the driving force behind that. And for anyone, I presume that my listeners are not Mikel Arteta out, because This is just not that kind of podcast. It's not particularly reactionary. I'd like to think it's quite calm and composed, and, I don't go overboard with any of my analysis, and it's a place for level-headed people. But if there is any of you out there that are Mikel Arteta out, who have decided that, let's get rid of this guy who's taken us so far, to try and find someone who can take us over that last little bit, fair enough, that can be your opinion, but remember what life was like before Mikel Arteta. You wouldn't have games like yesterday before Mikel Arteta. You wouldn't have players that work as hard as these guys do. He has instilled so much in that group of players, from work rate to tenacity to determination, and I genuinely think his influence on those players and on performances like yesterday cannot be understated. I think he has done a brilliant job, and regardless of where we go this year, just drink this in. Just remember days like yesterday and enjoying it today with your work colleagues or your school friends or whatever. Because I remember being an Arsenal fan, in the early noughties, and some of you out there will remember even further back than that, and some of you won't have had the joy of living through that period of time. And I always remember having players like Thierry Henry and Dennis Bergkamp that you can be absurdly proud of. And you can go, for me it was going into school, for many of you it will be going to work, and you can talk to your friends and your colleagues and go, did you see what our players did yesterday? Did you see what Thierry Henry did yesterday? He plays for our team. And I thought that yesterday. Yesterday, 2nd of February 2025, I watched that performance and I thought, I cannot wait to tell everyone what our players did today. That will be a game that I look back on for many, many years to come, regardless of whether we win this league or not, regardless of whether this team goes on to win a Champions League or takes home the big trophies. I will remember that game. I will remember being there. I will remember enjoying it for such a long period of time because of how good we were. Do not let the media or Manchester City fans go, oh, it's just because we weren't really at it. You're not that good. We are that good. We are absolutely that good. We did that yesterday without our star player, Bukayo Saka. Yes, they don't have Rodri, but they still have Erling Haaland. They still have Kevin De Bruyne. They still have players who could potentially go down as all-time greats in the Premier League, and they couldn't do anything to stop us. I think yesterday we should really, really remember, enjoy this. It doesn't matter. For this week, or at least until Wednesday, the context doesn't matter. Get rid of it. Forget it. Just enjoy the fact that we produced a performance yesterday that you can talk to people about for years and years to come and say, I remember that day. I remember that game. I might have been there, for some of you. So enjoy it, drink it in, and remember, these players, whether you love them or you think they are subpar or you think we can do better, what these players are giving us right now is absolutely incredible. And you just have to take their hat off to them. We could get spanked by Newcastle midweek, and this could all sound very, very silly, but I know even if we do lose that game, and even if we do lose many, many more games this year, I know for a fact these players will give their all, and I love that about this team, and I absolutely love this team as well. I am going to leave it there because my voice is hanging on by a thread. There was far too much singing yesterday for me to be podcasting today, but I've tried to get it out for you so you can enjoy some of this fantastic Arsenal 5, Manchester City 1 content. If you've liked this podcast or you like any podcast that I've done, please do consider giving me a follow or leaving a review. It really, really helps. I hope we have a really great performance against Newcastle. And look, if we can do this to Manchester City, who says we can't beat Newcastle by 3 goals? I suddenly believe again, and I'm going to be watching and obviously reviewing that on Thursday for you as well. So look, keep an eye out for that podcast, and probably do the Arsenal roundup in the weekend because we won't have a game. So we'll be kind of looking back on the transfer window a little bit from there. Let's hope we sign a player, but if not, I trust Kai Havertz, I trust Gabriel Martinelli, and I trust Leandro Trossard. Wherever you are, I hope you're well. Thank you for following, thank you for listening, and I'll speak to you very, very soon.